She would become one of them. She would work among them, eat their food, speak their language. She would be born as a child of beauty, a child of power, and a child of vengeance. The forest of the Eke stood like a dark, endless shadow on the edge of the village. It was a place of mystery, fear, and ancient power. No one entered without reason, and those who did rarely returned. The villagers of Umudim whispered stories about pythons that roamed among the towering trees, living in dark caves and holes. But the greatest legend of all was the tale of the great python and the first king. Many years ago, when King Osinachi was a young warrior, he had entered the forest on a daring hunt. There, he encountered the largest python ever, a serpent so mighty that it was believed to be the guardian of the forest. The battle between man and the beast was fierce. The python coiled around Osinachi, squeezing the life from him, but with a final strike of his blade, the young warrior saved his head. The people of Umudim had never seen such bravery. They lifted Osinachi onto their shoulders, singing songs of his victory. A feast was held for 7 days and 7 nights. He was crowned king. From that day, the killing of a python became a symbol of great honor in the land, and gradually they killed all the serpents. But what the villagers did not know was that deep in the heart of the forest, the python had left behind its child, and she had watched everything. She had seen her beloved torn apart and paraded through the village. She had heard the laughter, the singing, the celebration, and she had wept. For many moons she remained hidden, mourning. Then, from her sorrow, a terrible vow was born. She would have her revenge. She would bring pain to the descendants of the man who had killed her beloved and families. But revenge required patience, and so she slithered into the depth of the forest, waiting, praying, and planning, until the day came when she knew exactly what to do. She would not simply attack the village. No, that would be foolish, as they would hunt her down, just as they had done to her mates. Instead, she would become one of them. She would walk among them, eat their food, speak their language. She would be born as a child of beauty, a child of power, and a child of vengeance. And so she chose the perfect family, a woman who had longed for a child but had never been blessed with one, a woman who would welcome her with open arms, a woman whose heart she would break. The plan was set, the prayers were made, and the wait began. In the village of Umudim, there was a woman named Obianuju. She was kind-hearted, hardworking, and respected by all. But despite her many virtues, sorrow followed her like a shadow. For 15 years, she had been married to Ifeanyi, one of the greatest hunters in the land. Yet, her womb remained empty. She had done everything, prayed at the shrine, bathed in the river of fertility, offered sacrifices to the gods, but no child came. And in Umudim, a woman without a child was like a tree without fruit, useless. The whisper never stopped. A hunter's wife will be as fruitful as the land he hunts in. Perhaps she is cursed. Ifeanyi is a strong man. He should take another wife. Each word was like a knife to Obianuju's heart. But Ifeanyi, though proud, never abandoned her. He silenced those who mocked her and refused to take another wife. The gods would bless us when the time is right, he would always say. As Obianuju lay asleep, she dreamt of the forest of Eke. She saw the trees swaying as though they were whispering to one another. The wind howled like a crying child, and in the darkness, two golden eyes stared at her. A voice, soft and deadly, filled the air. You have waited long enough. Obianuju tried to run, but the ground beneath her feet turned to water. She sank deeper and deeper, the golden eyes watching her the whole time. A child will come. Her body stiffened. A child of beauty. The voice wrapped around her like a snake's embrace. A child of power. Yanuju opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. A child of fortune. The voice grew distant as a strange warmth filled her womb. The darkness faded, the wind stopped, and when she awoke, she was back in her hut, her hands resting on her stomach. For the first time in 15 years, she felt different. And she knew she was with a child. News of Obianuju's pregnancy spread through the village like wildfire. Women danced, men clapped, and even the elders smiled. But none was happier than Ifeanyi. The gods have answered us, he shouted. But the gods has not answered. The serpent had, and the price for the gift was blood. One evening, as Ifeanyi entered the forest of Eke for a hunt, a thick mist settled over the trees. The air grew heavy. The sounds of the night crickets, owls, rustling leaves suddenly ceased. Ifeanyi gripped his spear tightly. Something was wrong. Then he heard it, a soft hiss. It slittered through the air like a whisper, crawling around his ears, seeping into his bone. He turned sharply, spear raised, but saw nothing. Then from the shadows, two golden eyes appeared. A voice, soft and deadly, filled the air. A child will come. Ifeanyi's heart pounded. A child of beauty. Sweat dripped down his forehead. A child of power. He took a step back, but the voice followed him. A child of fortune. And then, before he could scream or run, something struck him. A sharp piercing pain in his leg. Then another. Then another. The forest swayed. The golden eyes faded, and the great hunter Ifeanyi fell into the silence of death. When the villagers found his body the next morning, there was no wound nor sign of struggle. Only his spear laid beside him untouched. Some whispered that he had angered the gods. Others said the forest of Veke had taken its revenge. But Obianuju, swollen with a child, only wept. And deep in her womb, the serpent girl smiled. Her plan had begun. The village was quiet, except for one hut where the sound of labor echoed. Cries of pain, whispered prayers, the urgent voice of midwives. Obianuju lay on a mat, drenched in sweat. Her body shook with exhaustion, but she held on. The village women surrounded her, encouraging her, their hands firm on her shoulders. Push! The eldest midwife commanded. With one final cry, the child entered the world. Silence filled the room. The women gasped. Obianuju, weak and trembling, forced herself to look. The baby in the midwife's hand was the most beautiful child they have ever seen. Her skin was smooth like polished ivory, her hair dark and thick like the night, but it was her eyes that held them all captive, golden, gleaming, and deep like the heart of the sun. It was unnatural, it was unworldly, but Obianuju did not care. She reached for her child, tears spilling down her face. My baby, my precious child. The midwife hesitated before placing the infant in her mother's arm. The other women whispered among themselves, stealing glances at the golden-eyed child. She is a gift, Obianuju declared, her voice filled with love, a blessing from the gods. And so, in honor of her late husband, she named her Ifeanyioma, meaning wealth is good. From the moment Ifeanyioma entered the world, strange things began to happen. Her mother, who had once been pitied, now flourished. People came from far and wide to buy her goods at the market. Her crop grew taller in her presence. Rain fell when she wished it to. Everything about her spoke of wealth and abundance. But there was another side to her fortune. Those who spoke ill of her mother found snakes in their homes. Those who mocked her golden eyes woke up with bites on their legs. One evening, when Ifeanyioma was just 4 years old, Obianuju found her playing in the yard with a cobra coiled around her neck like a bracelet. Her mother screamed, dropping the basket she was carrying. Ifeanyioma, step away. The child only giggled, stroking the snake's head as it flickered its tongue in the air. Do not be afraid, Mama, she said. It will not bite me. Obianuju fell to her knees, her heart pounding in terror. But before she could move, the cobra slowly uncoiled himself and disappeared into the bushes. That night, Obianuju barely slept. She prayed to the gods, asking for guidance, but the only answer she refused was silence. Her daughter was special. Her daughter was powerful. But deep inside her heart, a terrible question whispered, who is my child? As Ifeanyioma grew older, her beauty became more striking, her presence more magnetic. By the time she was 17, men and women alike stopped to admire her. She is like a goddess walking among us, the villagers said. But unknown to them, Ifeanyioma's power had begun to take shape. Her mother, who she convinced to start selling beads in the market, allowed her to help her with sales. The beads were colorful, smooth and admired by many. But these were no ordinary beads. They were hers, and they carried her vengeance. Each time a person bought a bead from Ifeanyioma, their fate was sealed. Some suffered misfortune, sickness, lost crops, ruined marriages. Others died mysteriously, their bodies found lifeless with no wound nor explanation. Only one thing was always the same. A snake was seen nearby. One evening, a wealthy trader named Okechukwu stopped at their stable. He was a proud man, known for boasting about his riches and mocking those less fortunate. He had often sneered at Obianuju in the past, calling her the barren woman who got lucky. Now he stood before them, admiring the beads. These are fine beads, he said. How much? For you, great trader, Ifeanyioma said sweetly. Only 3 cowries. Okechukwu laughed. 3 cowries? These are worth more, but I will take them. He dropped the 3 coins on the table and walked away, tying the beads around his wrist. As the sun set and Okechukwu returned home, a strange feeling crept over him. His wrist began to itch. He scratched it, but the irritation grew worse. Then before his eyes, the beads began to move. The smooth stones twisted and coiled, the bright colors shifting into scaly skins. A hissing sound filled his ears. Okechukwu gasped in horror as the beads transformed into a small but deadly viper. Before he could scream, the snake struck, sinking its fang deep into his flesh. His body convulsed, his breath quickened, his vision blurred. By the time his wife rushed into the room, Okechukwu was already dead, his arm still wrapped in the snake that had once been bit. Okechukwu's sudden death sent fear through the village. A snake killed him inside his own home. Where did it come from? Days later, another woman, Nneka, bought a necklace from Ifanyoma's tale. That night, as she prepared to sleep, the necklace around her neck tightened. She gasped, clawing at her throat. The beads twisted and their smooth surface turning to scales. The necklace came alive, transforming into a thick python that coiled around her neck, squeezing until the last breath left her body. By morning, Nneka was found lifeless in her hut, her eyes wide in terror. The necklace was nowhere to be found. Fear spread through Umudim like wildfire. There is something evil in our midst. The gods are punishing us, they said. 2 deaths in 2 days. This is no accident. But Ifanyoma and her mother continued selling their beads, and more people continued to die. Some were found with tiny snake bites, others with bodies twisted in terror. No one could explain it, no one could stop it, and no one suspected the beautiful girl with golden eyes. Not yet. The village of Umudim was no longer at peace. Fear wrapped itself around the people like a dark cloud. The strange snake deaths had become too many to ignore. First, it was Okechukwu, then Nneka, then another, and another. The village elders gathered in the obi of the king, their faces grim. "This is not ordinary," said Ichie Okafor, the oldest among them. "Snakes do not kill like this. A snake must be seen before it strikes. Yet no one has seen these snakes." "It is a curse," muttered another elder, "a punishment from the gods." The king, Eze Obieze, sat on his high stool, his expression unreadable. He was an old man, his hair white as the morning mist, his body wrapped in rich red clothes. He had ruled Umudim for many years. He had seen wars, famines, and plagues. But this is different. "Summon the hunters," he commanded. "Tell them to search every corner of the village. If there are snakes among us, they must be found and destroyed." At sunrise, the best hunters of Umudim set out on their mission. Their leader, Dike, was a man feared for his strength and skill. He could kill a lion with a single spear. His body was covered with scars from battles with wild beasts. We will search every hut, every farm, every hidden place, he told his men. No snake will escape. The villagers watched as the hunters moved through the land, their weapons ready. They dug into holes. They searched the rivers, the burnt bushes. Yet, not a single snake was found, not even one. But still, people kept dying. From her mother's tale in the market, Ifeanyioma watched the hunters with a secret smile. She knew they would find nothing. How could they? The snakes were her creations. They were not hidden in the earth. They are not littering through the village. They were disguised as beads, waiting for their next victim. She looked at the people passing by. A woman admired the red beaded bracelet. A young boy reached for a necklace. If only they knew what they were holding. If only they knew that the moment they tied the beads around their waist, their fate was already sealed. She lowered her lashes, hiding the glint in her golden eyes. Her revenge was not yet complete. Days passed. The hunters returned to the king empty-handed. "We have searched everywhere, my king," DK reported. "There are no snakes to be found." A heavy silence filled the palace. The elders exchanged troubled looks. "Then what is killing our people?" asked Ichie Okafor. Nobody had an answer. But that night, Obianuju started noticing that the people who patronized them was always the victim. That led her to ask herself so many questions. Why is it that it's anyone that patronizes that dies? Are these beads normal? But I make these beads myself. Is my daughter evil? She recalled the dream that gave birth to her existence. Is my daughter a snake? Obianuju's blood turned cold. That is a lie, she snapped. My daughter would never harm anyone. But even as she spoke, a shadow of doubt crept into her mind. She had seen things she could not explain. How Ifeanyoma's golden eyes sometimes glowed in the dark. How the beads she touched always felt warm, almost alive. How the death always seemed to follow her sails. But no, it was just fear playing tricks on her. Her daughter was a gift from the gods, and not a curse. That night, after they returned home from the market, Ifeanyioma sat across from her mother. She watched her for a moment before speaking. "Mother, I want to work in the palace," she said. Obianuju frowned. "Why?" "I want to serve the king. I want to be a maid." Obianuju shook her head firmly. "No, my child. We are comfortable. You do not need to serve anyone." "But mother," I said no. Obianuju's voice was sharp. "You are too beautiful to be anyone's servant. We have all we need. Stay here and help me with the beads." Ifeanyioma clenched her jaw. She had expected this. Her mother thought she was protecting her, but she was only standing in her way. And Ifeanyioma did not allow obstacles to remain for long. That night, the village was silent. The moon was full, casting silver light over the land. Obianuju lay asleep on her mat, her breathing soft and peaceful. Ifeanyioma knelt beside her, watching her face. A part of her almost hesitated. Her mother had cared for her, loved her, but love had no place in her heart. Not when she still had a mission to complete. She placed her hand on Obianuju's chest. Slowly, her finger tightened, her nails lengthened, turning into sharp curved claws. Obianuju's eyes flared open in shock. She gasped, struggling against the invisible force crushing her lungs. Ifeanyioma, she choked. But Ifeanyioma only smiled. Rest, mother, she whispered. I will do what I must do. Obianuju's body convulsed. Her eyes rolled back. Then she was still. Ifeanyioma sat back, admiring her work. Her mother had given her life, and now she had taken it back. The next morning, the villagers mourned the sudden death of Obianuju. She was healthy, some cried. She was not sick. The gods had taken her. But Ifeanyioma did not cry. She played her role well, bowing her head, receiving the condolences, nodding when people spoke of her mother's kindness. And once the burial was over, she wasted no time. She went straight to the palace and requested to become a maid. The palace servants were eager to have her. Such beauty, they whispered. She will surely please the king. If only they knew. Her journey had just begun, and the real hunt was only starting. Ifeanyioma entered the palace with a bowed head and humble steps. But inside, she was filled with victory and hatred. She had removed the one person who could have stopped her. Now, nothing stood in her way. The palace of Umudim was grand, with high walls made of red clay and roofs covered in palm fronds. The air smelled of roasted yam and burning incense. The king's throne hall was the heart of the palace, where decisions were made, judgments were passed, and secrets were buried. Ifeanyioma knew she had to be careful. Her true enemy, the king, was protected by powerful rituals, but she would be patient, just as a snake waits in the grass before striking. The palace was filled with servants, young girls who swept the floor, fetched water, and prepared the king's meal. Most of them were ordinary, but some were cruel. The senior maid had power over the younger ones. They gave orders, punished mistakes, and took pleasure in making others suffer. Ifeanyioma watched them silently. They reminded her of the foolish hunters who mocked a snake before stepping too close. They did not know that the one they tormented was deadlier than all of them combined. The leader of the senior maids was a tall, sharp-tongued girl named Nwabuogu. She did not like Ifeanyioma. Perhaps it was because of her beauty, or the way the palace guards stole glances at her. Or maybe she simply sensed something unnatural about her. You, Nwabuogu snapped on Ifeoma's first day, throwing a pile of clothes at her. Wash this before nightfall. Ifeanyioma said nothing. She simply picked up the clothes and carried them away. That night, as the maidens prepared for sleep, Nwabuogu's screams tore through the palace. Her roommates rushed to her bedside, only to find her body stiff and cold, her lips frozen in terror. 2 deep snake bites marked her neck. Yet, no one had seen a single snake enter the palace. The servant whispered in fear, The guards searched the rooms, but no answer came, and Ifeanyoma only smiled in the shadows. One obstacle removed. With one ball gone, the senior maids became silent. None dared to cross Ifeanyoma. She moved through the palace like the wind, quiet, graceful, unseen, but she never forgot her mission. She studied the king from afar. He was old and wise, his body covered in sacred chalk, his neck heavy with charms. She knew his protection was strong. The rituals performed before his coronations had built a strong wall around him. But even the strongest wall could crack. She only needed to find the weakness. One evening, palace buzzed with excitement. The crown prince was returning home. Ifeanyoma had heard of him. Obinna, the only son of the king, handsome, intelligent, fierce in battle. Every maiden in the palace spoke of him with admiration. But Ifeanyoma did not care for handsome warriors. She only cared about her revenge. And so she thought. Because the moment she laid eyes on him, something inside her shifted. She had expected a man. She had not expected him. His eyes burned like the rising sun. His smile was like the first rain after a dry season. And when he spoke, his voice was like a song she had never heard before. For the first time in her existence, Ifeanyoma felt something strange, a warmth she did not understand, a hesitation she had never known. She had come to kill, not to love. Yet, she could not look away from him. And that was dangerous. The palace of Umudim was alive with celebration. The crown prince, Obinna, had returned. Drums thundered in the courtyard. Dancers swayed like the wind. Women sang praises of his bravery. But Ifeanyoma stood frozen, hidden in the shadows of the great hall. Her heart pounded. An unfamiliar rhythm, strange and unsettling. She had prepared for this moment. She had planned to kill him. Yet, now that he stood before her, she found herself unable to move. She had never felt this way before. Obinna was dressed in the finest garments, his bronze skin glowing under the evening torches. His piercing eyes scanned the crowd as he greeted his father. Then, they stopped on her. For a brief moment, Ifeanyoma felt exposed, as if he could see past her beauty, past her disguise, past the monster that lurked beneath. Their eyes met. The air between them grew thick. She quickly lowered her gaze and turned away. But it was too late. He had noticed her, and he was coming closer. Later that night, as Ifeanyoma walked down a deserted hallway, she heard footsteps behind her. She did not turn. She already knew who it was. "You," came the voice, deep and rich like a steady drum. She stopped, but did not face him. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. No one had ever dared to ask. No one had ever spoken to her like this, she muttered. "Ifeanyoma," she finally said. She heard his smile before she saw it. "A beautiful name for a beautiful girl," he said. her breath caught in her throat. She did not want to feel this. She could not feel this. So she did what she knew best. She ran into the shadows before he could say another word. That night, she lay awake, staring at the roof of the servants' quarters. She clenched her fists. This is not why I am here. She had sworn to destroy this family. She had sacrificed too much to stop now. Her mother's death, the blood on her hands, the years of waiting. No mere prince could change that. And yet, his eyes haunted her. His voice echoed in her mind. For the first time, doubt crept into her heart. Was it possible? Could a serpent fall in love? She shook her head, disgusted with herself. No, love was for the weak, and she was no weakling. She had come to kill the king, and she would not fail. But deep inside, a terrifying thought whispered, what if you already have? Ifeanyioma tried to ignore the unsettling warmth in her chest. She had spent years perfecting the art of deception, smiling when necessary, bowing when required, hiding her true self behind the masks of innocence. But Obinna's eyes saw too much. Whenever he passed, she felt his gaze linger. And each time something inside her shifted, something she did not understand and didn't want to understand. She reminded herself of her mission. The king must die. The prince was nothing but an obstacle. Yet, the more she told herself this, the more she felt like a liar. One evening, while the maids prepared the king's meal, Obinna entered the servants' quarters. Gasps filled the room. A prince never stepped into such places. All the maidens bowed instantly, their eyes glued to the ground, except Ifeanyioma. She stood frozen, fighting the urge to run. You, Obinna said, pointing directly at her. The room fell silent, heart pounding. She slowly stepped forward. Follow me, he commanded. Whispers followed them as she walked behind him. Her hands clasped tightly together. Where was he taking her? Had he discovered something? Did he know what she was? He led her to a quiet garden behind the palace. The moon bathed everything in silver light. Why do you avoid me? Obinna asked. Ifeanyioma looked away. I do not avoid you, my prince. He chuckled, crossing his arms. Then why do you run whenever I come near? She said nothing. She could not tell him the truth, that she was a curse upon his family, that she had come to end his bloodline, that she had already taken the lives of many. I see the way you look at me, Obinna continued, stepping closer. You try to hide it, but I see it. He led her to a quiet garden behind the palace. The moon bathed everything in silver light. Why do you avoid me? Obinna asked her. Ifeanyioma looked away. I do not avoid you, my prince. He chuckled, crossing his arms. Then why do you run whenever I come near? She said nothing. She could not tell him the truth, that she was a curse upon his family, that she had come to end his bloodline, that she had already taken the lives of many. I see the way you look at me, Obinna continued, stepping closer. You try to hide it, but I can see it. I understand we barely know each other, but this is a case of love at first sight. From the first day I saw you in the crowd at my welcome party. I knew you were meant for me, Ifanyoma." Before she could respond, a loud horn sounded in the distance, signaling a meeting in the throne room. Obinna gave her one last look before turning away. She stood there, breathless. She shook her head, angry at herself. The prince was making her weak. She had to focus. She had to kill the king. Nothing else mattered. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. But deep inside, she had already begun to change. Ifeanyioma forced herself to forget the prince. She had spent too many years planning her revenge to be distracted now. Her mother's death, the suffering of her kind, the blood she had spilled, it all led to one thing: the fall of the king. So she turned her attention back to her mission. For weeks, she studied the palace. She learned the king's protection was not just from his guards, it was spiritual. His body was fortified by the rituals performed during his coronation. No ordinary weapon could harm him, no poison could touch him, no curse could break him. But Ifeanyioma knew one thing: every man has a weakness, and soon she found it. One night while scrubbing the palace floor, she overheard two elders whispering in the great hall. "The king's protection must be renewed soon," one said. "Yes," the other agreed. "The full moon is near. Without the ritual, his spiritual shield will weaken." Ifeanyioma heart leaped. This was the chance she had been waiting for. She needed to strike before the rituals was performed. Once his protection was weakened, she could finally kill him. She had to be patient and wait for the right moment. But while she plotted in the shadows, the prince watched her in admiration. Obinna was foolishly in love. Obinna, the only son of the man she was born to destroy. He was tall and dark, with broad shoulders and a smile that melted the proudest hearts. His voice was deep, smooth and firm. Every word carried authority, yet a softness that made even the strictest guards smile. Whenever he walked past her, her heart raced. She noticed everything: the swing of his sword, the strength in his steps, the ease in his laughter, and something inside her kept shifting. She kept telling herself it was nothing, just a distraction, a test. But as days turned into weeks and her eyes followed him, she would catch herself staring from behind pillars, hiding behind curtains, listening when he laughed, observing when he spoke. And one of those days their eyes met. She had just entered the garden to fetch water from the royal well when he turned suddenly, and their eyes locked. His gaze did not waver. She bowed quickly. She bowed quickly and turned to leave when Prince Obinna called out her name, Ifeanyioma, but she did not listen. She ran as fast as her leg could carry her. That night, she could not sleep again. The sound of her name in his voice repeated in her mind like a charm. She sat upright, clutching her knees to her chest. "This is not love," she whispered to herself. "This is weakness. I must not fail." But love is a patient hunter. It crept into her like smoke. The prince began speaking to her more often, asking questions, helping her carry heavy jugs. Once, he brought her mangoes from the royal grove, saying he noticed she liked them. No one had ever noticed such thing before. One evening, he found her crying behind the palace kitchen. The memories of her python mother had returned like a flood. breaking her defenses. He didn't ask questions. He only sat beside her, quiet, present. From that moment, her chest ached whenever she saw him. Then came the day he touched her hand, a small thing, just a brush of finger as he helped her up after she slept. But his touch burned through her like fire. She avoided him after that, but the prince did not give up. She avoided him again after that, but the prince did not give up. Every chance he got, he tried to speak to her. He asked her why she looked sad, why she avoided him. He told her he dreamed of her. She said nothing. She ran and cried and prayed to the forest goddess. Take this away from me, she begged. Take him away from my heart. I cannot love a man. I cannot touch him. If I do, I will die. I will lose my powers. My mission will fail. Please, Queen Goddess. Please, Queen Goddess. But love does not leave so easily. Each day after that, he searched her out. Each day he tried to understand her silence. Her words crumbled a little more. Until that night, the moon was at its brightest. She was walking back to her quarters when he called her name. Ifeanyioma, wait. She stopped, her heart thundering. He stepped closer, his voice a low whisper. Tell me, what have I done? Tell me why you keep running. If you don't want me, say it. I will walk away. But if there is even a little part of you that feels what I feel, say something. She said nothing. She only stared. Her mind screamed, run! But her body stood still. His eyes searched hers, pleading, burning, and without warning, she reached up and kissed him. It was soft, fierce, long, a kiss full of question and sorrow and surrender. When she pulled away, she saw the surprise in his eyes, the joy, the wonder, but she did not wait. She turned and ran, her heart pounding like thunder, tears blinding her, breath heavy with terror. She ran to her chambers, slammed the door, and dropped to her knees. What have I done? She whispered. Oh, mother, what have I done? That night, as she wept, the trees outside her window whispered a terrible truth. The python was falling in love, and the price of love was death. Ifeanyioma paced the length of her small chamber, her heart pounding like the war drums of Umudim village. Her lips still burnt from the kiss she gave Prince Obinna, and her hands trembled as though they had touched fire. It has not been part of the plan. She was supposed to get close to the king, close enough to strike when his protection were weakest. That was what the forest goddess demanded the night she made the oath by the river bank. Her serpent body coiled and strong, her fangs soaked in sorrow. I will give you the form of a maiden, the goddess had said, her voice soft and terrifying. You will be born as a human, but you will never love a human, especially not a man. If ever you fall in love with one and give your body to him, you will die by the morning. Your power will leave you and your vengeance will turn to dust. Ifeanyioma had agreed without blinking. Love was for the weak. Her heart belonged to her slain mother, and the cries of 1,000 pythons that echoed in her blood. She would not fail, but she had not prepared for Obinna. Why, forest goddess? She whispered. Why give me a heart if I was never meant to use it? Why give me this body if I was never meant to feel it burn? She knew what was happening. Her powers were sleeping. She could feel it. The snake that once crawled in her belly with calm assurance now stared in fear. Her skin, once smooth and cool like river stones, now pricked with unfamiliar heat. She was becoming more human than spirit, and that meant danger. Meanwhile, Prince Obinna could not stop smiling. He had felt her lips on his. He had seen the fire in her eyes. She loved him. She truly loved him. He rushed to his sick father's chamber that night, where the king lay coughing and frail, the once mighty warrior now a shadow of himself. "Father," he said, kneeling beside the bed, "I have found her, the woman I want to marry. She is not a princess, she is a maid, but her spirit is strong, her heart is pure, and I love her." The king chuckled weakly. "A maid, you say? Obinna, you always had a strange eye for treasure. What is her name?" "Ifeanyioma," the prince whispered with pride. "The most beautiful name I've ever had." The king's eyes clouded for a moment. The name felt strangely familiar, but he could not place it. He coughed again and gave his blessings with a tired smile. And so, as one heart bloomed, another drowned. Ifeanyioma, after crying and praying and cursing the gods, stood at the edge of the sacred pond that night, her reflection dancing in the moonlight. She knelt trembling. "Great mother of the forest," she prayed, voice cracking, "take this love from me. Take it before it kills me. I beg you, do not let me fail. I must avenge my mother. I must fulfill my oath." But the water remained still, the forest remained silent, and deep within her, something shifted again, an even more dangerous storm rising. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and like, and most especially, leave me an encouraging comment. Thank you. The moon over Umudin that night was full and red. Oji Dinanya, a blood moon, the kind that makes elders close their windows and mothers pour libations. Something ancient stirred. In the deepest hour of the night, the palace slept. But in the king's sacred chamber, Ifeanyioma moved silently, her footsteps soft like mist. She had served the palace for months, and now she has the prince's trust and love, with humility and beauty, hiding the fury that brewed in her blood. But tonight she feared herself. She feared dying without accomplishing her wish. The love that she had for the prince was beginning to weaken her, and her body burned and desired his touch. And if by any means she gives in to her desires, she will be dead, and her mission failed. So that night, she was determined to kill the king by all means. The king was sick, old and close to his grave, but she wanted him to die by her hands. In the same manner, he had killed her python mother and wiped away her kind. Ifeanyioma slipped into the king's chamber. He lay weak and still, his breath shallow. She stepped closer, her heart pounding. She had killed before. This was no difference. It was not a scream that came first. It was a hiss. Her back ached unnaturally. Her skin rippled like water. Scale emerged from her waist downwards, replacing flesh. Her leg fused and coiled. From behind, a thick gold python tail thrashed forward and slammed the chamber doors shut. The king opened his eyes weakly, unable to shout. She had distracted the guards by using spell to make them hunt after invisible snakes. Now half human, half python, eyes glowing gold, her hands becoming clouds. She didn't use the knife tucked in her wrapper. No, that would have been too kind. With primal fury, she wrapped around him and sank her teeth into his throat, tearing into the very place he had kissed her mother goodbye before sending her to die. The king gurgled, choking, eyes wild, blood spraying in the mat onto sacred floor. She groaned, not like a woman, but like a beast reborn from pain. The door burst open. Obinna rushed in. Behind him stood two of his personal guards, his heart pounding, lips parted in disbelief. He saw her, covered in blood, fangs burned. The king's lifeless body slumped in her coils, his throat a ragged ruin of meat and vengeance. She looked up, caught in the moment between rage and satisfaction, and their eyes met. "Ifeanyioma," Obinna whispered. Taking a step back, she dropped the body and hissed his name. The guards raised their spear, trembling. No one moved. No one breathed. Obinna stepped forward, shaking. "Why? Why this? Who are you?" In tears, Ifeanyioma replied, "Your father killed my mother. Your father killed my people. Your people killed all my kind. I am a python, the only surviving python in Umudim. I reside in the forest of Eke, where your father had ended the life of my mother and my innocent clan. Your father destroyed my kind. Even though we maintained our distance from humans, you still came for our heads. Olisa, the goddess of the forest, granted me the power to be born as human, just to take my revenge. I was the one that killed the villagers. I am the mystery snake. I killed them through selling charmed beads made by my earthly mother. I can't tell you all I have done, but I want you to know I'm not human like you. Your love weakened me. I had to do it now or never. I'm so sorry for putting you through the pain. I would have killed you, as I have planned, but I fell helplessly in love with you. And for the love I have for you, I will spare your life, and I will spare your people. But I cannot let the man that killed my mother go scot-free." Obinna's face twisted, confused and speechless. "But I loved you," he said. She was silent, her tail twitched. Then she slowly shifted back into her full human form. Blood soaked her wrapper, and her hips trembled now, not with fury, but with grief. "And I loved you too, Prince Obinna," she said. Prince Obinna, angered, feeling betrayed, collected a spear from one of his guards and moved angrily to strike Ifeanyioma, and accidentally Ifeanyioma beat him. The python venom went very fast through his veins, and in splits of seconds he stopped breathing. Ifeanyioma heartbroken, in tears, she never wanted to kill him, collected the spear from one of the guards and killed herself.